Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, Rock Motor City Mad Mouth, and I'll tell you what, we got the crew back. Rick Curti, Lou Landers, and Eric Katz. Glad to have you guys back. Really missed having us all four together, but I expect us to have a wonderful broadcast tonight. So glad to have you guys back. With that said, before I turn it over to Lou Landers, do want to say that, well, having a lot of fun with the Fire Up series. Eric Katz made his debut on Fire Up Wisconsin. Great job there. Greg Fuchs did a really wonderful job on Fire Up Florida. Of course, the other co-host on Fire Up Wisconsin is Candy Ebling. Unbelievable. And of course, George Eichhorn and Mark does a good job on Fire Up Michigan, and Mark Mancini and I are the common denominators on all of them. But that said, the quarterback of this show tonight is Lou Landers, pardon me, Senior Landers. My goodness. All right, Senior Landers, you're the quarterback of this broadcast. Take it away.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely good to be back. We got a great show here tonight, as always. And I want to start off talking about the Milwaukee Brewers. They are 2-8 in their past 10 games. And I think a lot of that can be chalked up to them losing two of their three aces. Brewers built on their pitching, and bullpen might be still great, but without Woodruff and without Freddie Peralta, rotation is lacking. Eric Lauer returning to the norm after such a strong start to the year. And they can't really just rely upon Corbin Burns to get it done in that rotation, despite playing in such a weak division. There's a good chance for the St. Louis Cardinals here to really extend their lead in this division now if the Brewers continue to struggle. Already down 3-0 tonight to the New York Mets. Not looking good for the Milwaukee because their offense isn't good enough to win without that great pitching. Over to you, Eric Katz. What are your thoughts on this Brewer situation? Can they survive the no Woodruff and no Peralta?
I mean, they got some nice guys in there, like Jason Alexander's been good for them. He's been able to eat some innings for them. But the problem now is, last year they were built on pitching and defense last year. But now with the injuries, I think, and the Brewers' offense is still having problems despite having some big boppers in the offseason. I really think it's until they start getting guys back. Obviously, getting Willy Adames back was huge, but until they start getting more guys back, it's going to be a difficult run here in June and possibly July. And also with Peralta being out with it for an extended period of time, their pitching staff will be formidable when Brendan Woodruff comes back, but it won't be as great as it was when Peralta was there.
Definitely not. And I do want to say subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel. Visit www.southfloridatribune.com. Follow us on Twitter at Tribune South to advertise. You can call 954-304-4941. Audio portion of the show can also be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, or really wherever you get your podcast. So be sure to subscribe to the South Florida Tribune. Rick, over to you. Brewers, what's going on there? Can they survive in this division even with the weaker teams below them?
No. Like I said, they're a scrappy, blue-collar, small market team. They rely on their pitching, bullpen. Their aces are out. Their offense is just not strong enough. So they need to get those guys back because right now they're not playing well at all. So, no, they can't survive.
Scott, a lot of teams, when they're in this situation, will go out there, they'll make a trade. Are the Brewers the type of team that can do that? They don't have a bad farm system. They don't have a great farm system either. They are financially strapped compared to some of the other teams that might go out there and do that. Do you see that being a possibility for them? Woodruff, still kind of unknown with his timetable. Peralta, they think they can get back sometime this summer, but with the type of injury that he has, he just really don't know.
Lou, I think really what it comes down to is the fact that the Brewers have made some trades the last couple of years to try to win now. So the question is what type of assets do they have left in their farm system? And I don't think they have an awful lot. I think the best thing they actually have going for them is their manager, Craig Counsell, who, by the way, tied Phil Garner for the most wins in Brewers history with 563. So to answer your question, Lou, I think it becomes a little bit of a challenge right now. In fact, I just got news here that the Brewers have claimed Chichi Gonzalez just came in. Our crack expert, Candy Ebling, decided to bring it to my attention. Is that enough to help the Brewers' cause? I don't know.
Not even close.
All right, but it's up there.
The Twins had him for a little bit, a first-place team didn't want him around either. I mean, they're desperate for some arms, so I get it, but no, that's not nearly close to enough. Eric, back over to you here. Do you see the Brewers having to make a trade? I mean, they don't want this to be a lost season by any means. They have their core right now. Their window of opportunity to win is basically right now over the next few years with the pitching staff they have built. They're not going to be able to contend with the Cardinals with the current pitching staff. So what can they do?
Well, they have some nice outfielders in their system right now, but I'm not sure if they really want to get rid of those guys, especially with Lorenzo Cain, who's in the last year of his contract, who looks like he's on the wrong end of age 36. I think, their prospects aren't bad. They do have some guys in there who you're not going to bring out all the outfielders up, but I know that they have some nice outfilders now that are really going to be pushing Cain, but I know for a fact they need help in that outfield, man, especially in center field. Because Low Cain is not Low Cain anymore. He is looking like he's on the last leg of his career, a shell of his former self. He's had a nice run in Milwaukee, but now it's clearly obvious though that the guy is at the end of his rope. I mean, obviously he's probably going to get a nice little plaque outside the stadium, but right now, though, the Brewers need help. They need another bat. I mean, Hunter Renfroe, when healthy, has been good for them. But the fact of the matter remains, they need a guy who can make contact, not just a home run or die approach, which is a boom or bust. And so far, it hasn't been working.
No, it definitely hasn't been. I know they have Ashby, and I know they gave Small one opportunity. I'm surprised they haven't gone to him again. Small. Kind of see what he can do at the big league level. Or if they're not going to use him, trade him. I mean, go take some of these younger players and turn them into something that they can use now because they are in that win now mode. At some point, Woodruff, Peralta, Burns, these guys are going to hit arbitration. They're going to hit free agency, and the Brewers aren't the type of team that's going to be able to afford to keep them around.
I think with Ashby. Ashby's been they kind of used him as a reliever spot starter, and he's capable of starting. I was surprised he didn't open up the year in the rotation just because, he had that nice stretch late in the season where he was pitching lights out. But the fact of the matter remains, though, is the Brewers, pitching's not the issue. Obviously, the injuries are a problem, but I wouldn't go out and get pitching. Their biggest, also, it doesn't help, though, that their bullpen isn't as deep as it used to be.
Fair point. It's still probably their biggest strength currently at this time with the starters out. But you got to have a lead for the bullpen to really make a big difference. And right now they're not getting that lead. And you're right. The offense still is the biggest struggle. Why I say go out and get pitching is because the strength for them has been pitching. They've proven they can win if they can pitch, which clearly right now they just can't.
I mean, it just comes down to it. Unfortunately, though, they just had a rash of injuries at the worst time, especially when they were playing teams like the Cardinals, which they were lucky to get a split off of in St. Louis. But also when they had a homestand against the Padres, which the Padres are no slouch either, despite Fernando Tatis Jr. being unable to go so far for most of the year.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're right. If they were getting the Pirates and the Cubs and the Reds right now, it might not look so bad. Rick, your thoughts? Didn't ask you yet on, are the Brewers the type of team that are going to go out there and make a trade, or are they just going to try to patch this together and hope they get these guys back in time?
Patch it up. I mean, they already got somebody, they're desperate right now. They just are not known to spend a lot of money. Like I said, they're a small market team. So they're probably going to do a little patch job and just wait and see what happens with their pitching. But I don't see them getting any big names out there. I don't think they have the depth in their farm system. And that's just not what they do. They don't go out and make these big splash trades. So they're just going to patch it up, see who they can get. Maybe
I will say, I'm pretty sure, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, at one time they did go out there and trade for CC Sabathia, and at one time they did go out there and trade for Zach Greinke, if I'm not mistaken.
They did, yeah. They had Sabathia for that run in 2008, and they had Greinke, I think around the same time, and they tried to keep him. And
yeah, I think Greinke was traded prior to the Royals being good and getting to the World Series. I think a lot of the pieces that they got from Milwaukee helped them get to the World Series eventually in Kansas City. I think it was like maybe 2011, 2012, the trade went down.
Yeah. They Yeah, which that happens, but they get an opportunity and they thrive there. It's a small marketplace. But the thing about it is, though, I wouldn't put anything away from the Brewers. I mean, they don't make splash trades very often, but keep in mind though, this team made a trade in May when their offense was just awful, probably the worst in the league last year, and got Willie Adames, and the offense got better, and we had the summer of Willie Walkie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a timely trade could come in handy for them. Could they still contend with the Cardinals? Maybe currently, I don't think they have the roster to do that, but they still have a number of opportunities to get into the playoffs. The big key here is not falling far behind the other good teams in the league, like the Giants, like the Braves, maybe the Phillies who are coming on. We'll talk about both those teams soon. The Padres, as we know, maybe the Dodgers if they don't win their division. So it's a competitive top 7 or 8 in the National League. They don't want to fall too far behind everybody.
Keep this in mind with the Cardinals. The Cardinals are kind of banged up too, but you have to keep in mind though, the Cardinals for some reason in July and for some reason in August, that team just goes in a slump in the middle of the year. I don't know why. They always do. They did it last year, and then it took them going on an ungodly winning streak to get to the playoffs. But
yeah, they are deeper now than they have been in the past, though.
And then
a lot of their prospects have kind of matured into big league ready players. They've gotten a lot of contributions from them already.
Yeah, Liberatore was fantastic last night. Just going.
Yeah, Gorman has been good. Yepes has been good. Donovan has been good. They're getting production from these guys while O'Neill was out. Carlson was struggling, and at some point they could get Jack Flaherty and Jordan Hicks back too.
Brendan Donovan, who originally I thought the Cardinals were going to go get a shortstop, he's proven a lot of people wrong after they demoted DeJong.
Yeah, and Tommy Edmonds having a great season. So, yeah, Cardinals are a very good team. Speaking of good teams, and the team that actually beat the Brewers started their playoff run last year, an incredible run it was. The Atlanta Braves started the season really slowly this season. They've now won 12 straight. They're winning again tonight, trying to make it lucky number 13. And in that time, they've gained quite a bit of ground on the New York Mets. Mets still playing good baseball, just not great baseball. Mets starting to look over their shoulders. And it's interesting because I didn't mean for this to happen, but we talked, I think, a couple weeks ago. What are the Mets going to do? They're down 2 of their big aces. They haven't slowed down all that much, but they're in a different situation than that of the Milwaukee Brewers, who've lost the 2 aces that we talked about. Should the Mets be worried about the Atlanta Braves? Braves did just lose Albies, but they're still a very good team, and the Mets still with no real timetable to get Scherzer or DeGrom back. What are we seeing from the Atlanta Braves here? Can they keep up? Maybe not win, 20 of the next 22 games or something, but certainly can they keep up a 620, 630 winning percentage? And can they catch the New York Mets? What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're red hot right now. I mean, they started out slow. It looked like, well, maybe because of Freeman, but they've won 12 in a row. They did lose one of their best players, but right now they're red hot. And the Mets they're still playing good, but just the Braves are just smoking on fire hot right now. And when you're like that, of course you're going to gain ground. And so, yeah, the Mets should be concerned. They have no idea when they're going to get their aces back. But, I mean, I thought the Mets would fall apart, and they haven't. They've still been playing good, but right now the Braves are just absolutely scorching red hot. So they should be concerned. But are the Braves going to keep up that pace? And, I mean, they're not going to win like 30 in a row. I don't think they will. But can they keep up, like you said, a 620, 630 winning percentage? We'll see.
Lou, let me incorporate one thing about the Milwaukee Brewers, okay? First of all, you're talking about an organization who got mileage out of Hernan Perez, okay? Number one. Number two, we knew that they couldn't afford Prince Fielder, okay, who ended up going to Detroit. And not only that, CC Sabathia had the Steinbrenner money. So, the Brewers do what they can with what they have to work with. But think, the organization made something out of Hernan Perez. So what am I trying to say? They're capable of anything. Do I think that they have a miracle left? No, I think you guys are all on point there. Just want to make sure we got that out there.
And I'll add this though about the Brewers. Keep in mind though, David Stearns there's an old saying in Milwaukee. It's called David Stearns has a good average. This guy has pulled pitchers out of the ground before. He did it with Jake Cousins. He's doing it this year with Trevor Gott. This guy finds pitchers out of nowhere, where to the point where I've started calling him the mad scientist.
Well, he got good mileage out of Corey Knebel, too, for God's sakes. I mean, really.
Until don't
put nothing past David Stearns. Obviously, I don't things are working against their favor. Didn't want to get off point there, but I had a few things in mind that I thought were worth bringing to the forefront. That's why I brought them in there, incorporate them. Go ahead, Lou.
I think they have what it takes to get a Frankie Montas, for instance,
They
from
do.
the A's. I think they certainly do. The A's didn't get much for Bassett or Mania either. I mean, the Brewers can certainly cough up the same amount for Montas that those other teams gave up for those guys. So that would be a really nice play for them, and maybe pick off, like a Seth Brown type or just any semi-decent hitter. Ramon Laureano would be perfect for center field there. Talking about what you were talking about, Katz needing a center fielder.
I know they've talked about. I know they're rumored with Andrew Benintendi.
Yeah, a lot of teams are. I would be too if I was the Royals. But back to the Braves and the Mets here. Scott, you and I have talked about this on a podcast. You came on with me, my Count Stats podcast,
Right.
and we've all talked about it here. Mets holding on. I think a lot of that has to do with the great offense they have this year, ranked number 1 or 2 in a lot of major categories. A great manager in Buck Showalter as well. But needless to say, we remember what happened to the Mets last year. They had an even bigger lead at this point over the Braves, the Phillies, and everybody, and they still lost it. And we know what eventually happened. So I wouldn't put anything past the Braves and the Phillies, who we'll talk about shortly, 9-1 in their past 10 games. They're starting to play good baseball.
All right, here's where I stand on this one. Okay, number one, I'm going to stick to what I said before. Buck Showalter is a manager. I say the Mets are going to win the division, period. Okay, now the best thing that the Braves have going for them is this. Number one, they're the World Series champs, so you don't have to worry. They don't have any World Series drought because they're the defending champs. So Brian Snitker, good manager. They certainly develop players well. They have a lot of good players. So there's no question the Braves are getting in the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to win the division doing it. But again, I'll stick to Buck Showalter. If they have to outscore some teams for a little while, so be it. They'll do it. But in the end, I'm still going to say that the Mets are going to go ahead and win the division, and the Atlanta Braves are going to get in the playoffs, and they'll have a chance to defend their title. I understand Ozzie Albies is on the 60-day injured list with a fractured left foot. That's nothing to take lightly, but I still
No, it's not, but they do have 7 runs in 3 innings tonight
Right.
without him.
Right. No, I understand that. So the Braves, to me, will be fine. I just believe the Mets are going to win the division title, and that's where I'll leave it. For that matter, I'll leave it on both for those teams with those comments right there.
All right, Cats, Mets, Braves. What do you got here, man?
You know, guys know how much I love to make fun of the Mets. I just love to trash them. I mean, probably worse than I do the Montreal Expos old stadium. But it's just in their nature to blow things. That's what they do. They've been doing. They never 07 and 08. They had a pretty sizable lead, and they still blew it 2 years in a row somehow. But the thing about this year is they got a better team and they got better hitters. But keep in mind though, the Braves last year were slow, and they actually ended up eventually getting to the World Series and winning. But the Braves are hot right now, and this is the same team that won the World Series without Ronald Acuna, and also without Marcell Ozuna, who was dealing with his off the field issues. They've done this before. They won the division during that time too. They can do it again. This time, all they're missing is Albies, but they have some better bats this year, especially with Austin Riley, who's really coming into his own, who's become such a fun player to watch. Max Olson is starting to win over Braves fans, especially given what's going on with Freeman in Los Angeles. But this team, man, it's hot. I mean, did I expect him to go on the streak they're going on right now? No, but keep in mind though, the Mets have a way of stumbling. It's in their history, it's in their nature. The only year where you could truly say they didn't really stumble, it was 1986 when they won the World Series, as well as 2006 when they made it all the way to the NLCS, and they had that, and they lost to the Cardinals in 7 games.
The 2000 team, the Subway Series, was good. Team that lost the Royals in the World Series, I think 2015 was pretty good. But for the most part, yeah, they stumble, and they stumble badly. And the thing with the Braves, too, you mentioned they did it without Acuna last year. They did it without Ozuna last year. They did it without Soroka last year, who's coming back. Morton got hurt in the World Series in that start. Morton hasn't even been that good this year. Acuna still is back and obviously healthy. Michael Harris, their prospect they've called up, has been hitting the ball really well, plays in the elite center field defense. So they have a very good team. right now they are better, in my opinion, on paper than the Mets at everything. Mets just got off to that great start. Head to head is going to be key for them, but also let's keep in mind Phillies are no slouch, and neither are the Marlins. And I mean, there's only one bad team in this division. It's not like the Mets are going to be able to coast here. And speaking of the Phillies, they fired Joe Girardi. People thinking, why are they doing that? Joe Girardi is manager of the year, a World Series champion. They brought him in to try and, win with this team. It's not his fault that Dombrowski spent on more offense and not pitching, so on and so forth. But Phillies, 9-1 of their past 10 games. A lot of ground to make up here, even with the hot play they have had. But interesting to see them play so well post Girardi. And it might not be about Girardi's managerial skills. It might be more about the fact that the team might just not have been gelling under him, because they're certainly gelling since. Rick, your thoughts?
Well, I'm happy. I was happy to see Joe Girardi back as a manager. I just didn't think the Phillies was a good spot for him. I always thought that he should have gone to the Cubs, because he played there. He went to Northwestern. That would have been a perfect fit, but the Cubs are a mess. And so when he went to the Phillies, I just didn't see it a good fit there. It's a tough place to win. The fans are merciless, but he's a good manager, but it just didn't work out. And with him not being there and they're playing so well, I mean, it just didn't work. Maybe his old school approach, he's a tough guy. Maybe that wasn't doing anything for them. And Bryce Harper kind of took a little swipe at him. So it just didn't work out. I just don't think his style was a good fit for the Phillies or for the players. And obviously so, because they're red hot after they got rid of him.
They most certainly are. And if Bryce Harper's not happy with you, you're probably not going to be sticking around the organization, because they've clearly invested a lot in the future with that team and Bryce Harper. So that very, very easy to understand. Eric, your thoughts here with the Philadelphia Phillies?
Well, like I've said with the Phillies, initially I liked it because Girardi's good for those teams that need a kick in the rear. But unfortunately, it just wasn't a good fit. I mean, yeah, he won in New York and was very successful in New York. But, this time around, unfortunately, though, the dollar signs are what got him. I mean, partially, too, there were reports saying he was losing the clubhouse, which was true. But, I think that, unfortunately, he just ran into a spot where the dollar signs are up, the pressure to win is there. And and also it's Philadelphia's a tough place to play in. I mean, yeah, he won in New York, but, Philadelphia's a tough town. It's a tough sports town. It's like New York. It's not a place where you could say whatever, because the fans will let you know.
He had a more leeway in New York as well, considering he was part of a few championship teams as a player in New York. So I think they had a little more leeway there, because remember, he won in his second year and then he didn't win again.
Prior to going to the Marlins, he was a bench coach there too. So he had been there.
Yeah,
but I think also, unfortunately, though, I think the front, it also didn't help that the GM that brought him in was fired his first year. So, so when they brought in when Dombrowski was brought in, there's some of that too, where Dombrowski would be able to pick his own guy, because Dombrowski has won everywhere he's gone,
except for Detroit.
Well, he made it to the World Series though. He's had success everywhere he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
he also totally spent terribly this offseason, though. I mean, you're talking about a team that already had a great lineup, that had issues at the back end of their rotation, issues in their bullpen. So instead, he goes out there and buys two big hitters to add to an already great offense, neither of which can play defense at all in Castellanos and Schwarber. So that makes it even worse for your already terrible pitching, and didn't spend, again, at all on the pitching. That's not Joe Girardi's fault. That's Dave Dombrowski's fault.
He brought in Brad Hand, and some of it is on Dombrowski. I mean, it's kind of.
Look at what Brad Hand had done prior to Philadelphia the last couple of years. He's not the Brad Hand from San Diego or Cleveland, and Juris Familia is not the Familia that was a stud with the Mets. He went out there and bought really cheap, low quality arms that had been there, done that aren't good anymore.
I mean, Dombrowski's biggest problem everywhere he's gone toward the end of his time there has been his pitching. For some reason, he thinks you can win with just offense. It happened to him in Florida. It for sure happened to him in Boston after they fired him, even after a year or two after winning the World Series.
Yeah, exactly. So again, the manager is the guy that takes the fall, and we're going to talk about that even more coming up here. We are going to talk about who's going to be fired next. So for those listening, get your thinking caps on. Who do you think is going to be fired next? But Scott, I want to come over here to you. You covered the Marlins, so you know you're very familiar with this NL East. You've covered the Yankees, so you know about Girardi. Girardi obviously also coached with the Marlins. Was Girardi the problem here? Because it obviously right now looks like it, but at the same time, the Phillies started their winning streak or this hot streak when they were playing the Los Angeles Angels, who were in the midst of a huge losing streak. So
I can
taking out that Angels series, is it really all that impressive that they're winning under Robbie Thompson? Because look, I know all about Robbie Thompson. He's not a good coach.
I could have told you a year ago that Girardi was going to get fired because I saw the body language of Dave Dombrowski over at Marlins Park. And I can tell that, he inherited him, like Eric said. Okay. So you had to give him a chance to see what he could do. Yeah. Of course, he spent dearly on the bats, but you're talking about a man that, the Tigers paid a lot of money to not win a world championship. Yes, they made it to 2 World Series, but think about it. He overspends on Rick Porcello with the Boston Red Sox. Chris Sale didn't come cheap either. And, the Tigers were in salary disarray for a while when he left. So they've had to clean out a lot of dead salary. So, yeah, he pays his people pretty well. And the championship he won with Boston, they paid good money for that too. But look what happened. And he depleted the farm system there. So, Dave Dombrowski's high risk, high reward is what he is. And if it's not his money, he doesn't mind spending it. So all I can tell you is I'm not surprised he got fired. Joe Girardi, to me, am I surprised he didn't get more time? But let's face it, you guys have already mentioned it. He didn't spend a whole lot of money on pitching, and he inherited the manager. So you want to obviously bring in your own manager. And this is a good opportunity for Robbie Thompson to go out there and audition for the job and see what he's done. The early results are good. But remember, this sport compared to any other sports, okay, you have peaks and you have valleys and you have injuries and you have a lot of things that go wrong during the course of 162 games. Let me see this in October. And let me tell you, we talked about the Marlins, all right? There's a team that I've said all along, if they get any kind of hitting, they're going to be good. Nobody's going to tell me that Pablo Lopez is in a thoroughbred. If that isn't good enough, what about Sandy Alcantara? Ever heard of them? And I actually saw a pretty good performance out of Braxton Garrett, and they sent Eliezer Hernandez back to Jacksonville, where I don't think they'll ever see him again anyways, because this guy was friendly on the home runs, and the beat goes on and on. But not getting off point with Dave Dombrowski and Joe Girardi, that wasn't a match. And I do think that Joe Girardi could land again. We'll just see if he lands with another situation. A little bit of time off, a little bit to see what other situations, because there's another job out there waiting for him. But, yeah, Philadelphia is definitely a tough place to manage. And he obviously found out the hard way. But Dave Dombrowski, to me, if he doesn't win soon, don't think that, to me, his neck will be on the chopping line, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him next to Nashville trying to get an expansion team and maybe join up with Dave Stewart. No, Rick Curti, you're not getting in your wheelhouse tonight about it, but before he took the Philadelphia gig, he was front and center trying to get a team in Nashville. We'll see whether or not he winds up back in Tennessee with no state income tax.
Well, here's the thing about that with Dombrowski. Number one, I think Girardi was going to get canned at the end of the year if he didn't make the playoffs. I think at this point in the year, he had already lost the team. I mean, when Harper's already swiping at you and there's already grumbling about the players are grumbling about no energy, you're in trouble, man. They just unfortunately it just happened all at the wrong time. And Girardi getting fired didn't surprise me. I mean, Robbie Thompson, I don't think he's going to be the guy. It's, right now the Phillies just happen to run into a great part of their schedule where they were beating up on some bad teams, especially with the Angels in their own free fall. But, they just have right now the Phillies are just playing, especially they caught the Brewers too, who were in the free fall of their own. So they're just beating up on teams who are just in the worst, they're not so nice parts of the season where the injury, we get to the point in the year, the injuries start to pile up and things like that. I think it's great that Robbie Thompson's able to get a shot, but I really think Philadelphia is going to go for a big name. I mean, that's just who they are. I don't think it'll be Madden, but somebody will be out there. Heck, not to hint the segment, but Dave Martinez could be out there who won a World Series with the Nationals.
Yeah, well, I'll say one thing about Robbie Thompson in the ice cream business. We call him the flavor of the day. That's all I have to say. We'll see. Maybe he gets a job, maybe he won't, but he'll have an opportunity to audition for it. So far, so good. But we'll revisit this later.
He's probably a better manager than Phil Nevin. I don't know how that guy got that job in
Oh,
Anaheim.
God.
He might have been the worst base coach I've ever seen in my life
Right.
when he was with the Yankees. He
I
was
wanna-
so bad.
I want. Oh God, not Nevin. That was just that was terrible.
Yeah, so I mean, the Angels are screwed.
Should have kept Mickey over. Should have kept Mickey there.
Yeah, they honestly would have been better off bringing in just a dude off the street.
I mean, the Angels right now. Oh man, the Angels are a mess. You know, it doesn't.
Mike Trout, player manager.
One shot.
I mean,
that would be great. That'd be something.
Artie
they
Moreno,
better
he's the
chance.
one to blame for all that.
Artie Moreno. I mean, here's the thing though. I thought that was wrong. The Angels kind of pressed the panic button there. Like, yeah,
maybe they'll go after Girardi.
It would not shock me if Girardi ends up over there because they're built to win now. Girardi's looking to win now. He for sure wants to manage again, and it's just the situation I think over there is right, and I know Trout speaks highly of him.
Well, remember, the last catcher that won there was a guy by the name of Mike Scioscia. It worked out pretty well. So if you're going to revisit a manager, you might as well do one that sat behind the dish. Yeah, I think Girardi would be an interesting hire with the Angels now that you guys brought it up. So, yeah, you never know. We've seen crazier things happen in baseball.
Yeah, well, there could be some more managers out there available, too. Eric brought up Dave Martinez, which will bring us over to our final topic here tonight. Which manager or managers next to be fired? And off the top of my head, when I first thought of this topic and wanted to kind of get things rolling on this show here, Tony La Russa is one name that comes to mind. I never liked the hire to begin with. I think the game has kind of passed him by. I'm not taking anything away from what he has done in the game because it's amazing. He's a legend as a manager, but the game is very, very different than when he was successful as a manager. White Sox, great team last year, didn't matter this year. Great team again, higher expectations. They're just not doing anything right. I think he's lost that clubhouse. I think a lot of guys are just kind of sick of his nonsense that he has. Some of the decisions he's made, that one of walking Trey Turner intentionally on a 1-2 count might have been the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. That's senile. That's not even stupidity.
Lou,
he's just senile now.
Lou, was that a first for you? Because it was a first for me.
1-2 count? Yeah, that's a first for me, for sure. And I'm glad Monty came up and smacked a home run right after. Just kind of throw it in his face there. But another guy who really has no business still having his job at all. At least La Russa's been there, done that. So I get why he still has a job. But if you're going to get rid of Madden and Girardi and talk about possibly getting rid of La Russa, Scott Service. Listen, I know Seattle shocked a lot of people last year. They won 90 games. I mean, it was a great season they put together, and he got a lot of credit for that. But they were supposed to take a step forward this year. They spent all the money on Robbie Ray. Julio Rodriguez, can't miss prospect, comes to the big leagues. I mean, this is a team that should be in second place or even contending with the Houston Astros. They're in fourth place. They're barely ahead of the Oakland A's, who basically sold off their entire team. The fact that this guy still has a job and they're just letting it get worse and worse and worse in Seattle, before long, they're just going to be out of it. The season's going to be over for them, and they're going to be stuck with this guy. He should be the first guy to go in Scott Service. That's what I got here. Scott, for the first time all night, I'm coming to you first.
Well, it's funny. When you brought up this topic, Tony La Russa and Scott Service were the first two people that came to my mind. I really do. And you know what? Let's face the reality. La Russa did get him to the playoffs a year ago. But let me tell you, he didn't get him there because he's a great manager. He was just fortunate enough that it worked out well enough that I think a lot of the division had down years. And, yeah, of course, first year they respect him. But for a White Sox team to be 28-31 in third place, with behind the Guardians, a team that's not spending a lot of money, and we didn't know what to expect of the Minnesota Twins. That's bad. So think about it, guys. 28-31 in third place in that division. And let's face it, what Scott Service is dealing with right now is a team that has never been to the World Series. Never been to the World Series and won the most games ever, I believe, a regular season with 116, right? But I believe Lou Piniella, and they never made it to the World Series. So Scott Service at 27 up, 34 down, fourth place, ahead of the Oakland A's. Like you said, Lou sold it off those are the first two guys that I entered. So I guess I'm going to go back to say this again, Lou. GMTA, great minds think alike. When you brought those up, those were the first two that entered my mind. And I will tell you one thing: a lot of people wonder, Don Mattingly's not going anywhere. No, I think Don
Absolutely not.
Mattingly will be fine. Even though his contract is up at the end of the year, Don will be fine. He just needs to get some pitching, and he needs to go ahead and have a little hitting. I know they had a little bit of a clubhouse discussion last week with Jazz Chisholm, trying to be Dennis Rodman with all his weird looking hairdos. But he's a heck of a player. But the Marlins will be fine. But back to my original thought, Tony La Russa, Scott Service, yes. Davey Martinez is interesting. It might be one of those things, let me get out of here quick enough, and you go from there. You know what? I know this before your time a little bit. But Davey Martinez might fall into the Darryl Rogers category, formerly of the Detroit Lions, who used to be with the Michigan State Spartans when he went to Arizona State. Can anybody get fired around here? And I'm telling you, he's hoping probably the Washington Nationals get rid of him so that he can get a better job. And, think about it, maybe Davey Martinez might wind up with the Angels and rejoin his other player, right? Is it Anthony Rendon, I believe, is out there? Never know.
Is.
Again, so anything's possible. But, yeah, I'll read it for the third time. La Russa, Service, anything else?
Yeah, and again, La Russa, because of his resume, could be a tougher sell. But as the White Sox continue to struggle, I mean, how far are you going to let them fall behind the Twins? It's one thing to be able to beat the Tigers or the Royals, but they've struggled with Cleveland. Cleveland's ahead of them. Cleveland, the team that doesn't spend any money. This is a team that should be running away with this division right now. But with Service, I mean, he hasn't proven anything. He hasn't earned the right to be given the benefit of the doubt the way that La Russa has. So for me, he should probably be the first to go. Eric, what are your thoughts here, man?
Well, let me add one thing to it, Lou. Sorry to interrupt you. Okay. Tony La Russa, I think, makes it to the year. Jerry Reinsdorf gives him a check for the final year if indeed he signed a 3-year contract. I don't see him being a midseason casualty, but I agree with you. I think he becomes a victim of being let go at the final at the end of the year. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm on point with you all the way, Lou. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I think number one, the reason I don't think La Russa will be let go is Jerry loves him. I mean, for better or worse, the White Sox haven't been known to make midseason, like under Jerry Reinsdorf anyway. They haven't been known to fire coaches midseason. I mean, this is the club that Jerry Reinsdorf is more involved in than he was the Bulls. But the White Sox are going to let him ride it out till the end of the year. That's just what they do. I mean, for better or worse, that's Jerry Reinsdorf, and I can see him not actually firing La Russa, but kind of making a quote unquote resignation. Just because the only reason he got the job was Jerry Reinsdorf felt bad about firing him years ago, and he realized, I what up. But Scott Service, I mean, he was there as a GM, and then but he's been a manager since 2016, and we have nothing to show for it. Yeah, they put together a mini run in later in the year last year, and we thought this was the year, and they go ahead and become buyers in free agency, and they don't. But one guy I don't think we're keeping in mind, what we're missing here is Chris Woodward down in Texas. And here's why. That team spent more than anybody else in the offseason. Crazy to think the Rangers would do that. But Woodward hasn't got it done in Texas. And, I'm sure everybody in Texas is tired of them losing. So don't keep an eye on that though, because Woodward is, he hasn't got it done. To be truthful, I don't think he's that great of a manager.
See, I'm going to disagree with you on the Woodward one because Texas did spend a lot of money, but Texas spent that money this year not expecting to just suddenly be good all of a sudden. They invested in Semien and Seager for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and some of these younger prospects are coming up. Duran's been good. Jung should be back next year. They were without John Gray for a little while, and they are playing better baseball. They've gone into second place in that division. They're climbing closer to 500. I wouldn't throw in the towel on him yet. They're not underachieving. They're just not overachieving. They're basically right where they were expected to be this year. So he's a guy that sure over the next year or two, if they don't start to play good baseball, contend for a playoff spot, could be gone. But there's nothing he really could be doing better with the current roster and team that he has.
I think Martinez too is gonna go for better or worse. I mean, it's not because right now he just has a crappy team around him. The only thing carrying him at this point is Juan Soto. Strasburg.
He should just quit.
I mean, he could easily. I mean, winning their first World Series there, he's going to get another shot. Someone else will come get him. Like, I know that, I could see the Angels doing it. I could see a number of teams, wanting him. As far as Don Mattingly, I don't think the Marlins do. He's had that team improving every year. They got a great young team of prospects right now. Their pitching staff has improved a hell of a lot since he began there. And I think that, Mattingly is going to be back next year. But La Russa, I don't know. It's Jerry Reinsdorf. Reinsdorf likes to ride guys out to the bitter end. He did this in Chicago with Jerry Krause. He did it with the only time where he has it was Ozzie Guillen, which he thought about it, but he let Ozzie Guillen ride out until the end. I think La Russa will be on the hot seat, but it remains a big if they fire him, because we all know how much Reinsdorf loves Tony La Russa, for better or worse.
But the question is not even about the love for La Russa. It's more so, how far behind can you let this team fall? This is a team that is ready to win now. They failed in the playoffs last year under La Russa. Fine. It was a young team. It happens. But they, rather than even maintaining that or taking a step forward, they've arguably taken 3 or 4 steps back. I mean, they're not getting anything from anybody. I mean, Kopech, sure. Tim Anderson, when he was healthy, sure. Giolito's been fine, I guess. They just lost their closer in Liam Hendricks. Who knows how long that's going to be. But they have a lot of underachieving players. They're getting nothing from Yoan Moncada. Jose Abreu has been a far cry from what he was in 2020, even 2021. It's just not working there. There's way too much talent for them not to be better than this.
I think the issue with La Russa is the players have changed since he last managed. They're softer than what they used to be. This isn't the type of team where you could beat La Russa, you could stamp his foot and at least get the point across. It's changed now. La Russa, I like to compare him to the Al Pacino character in Any Given Sunday. Toward the end, as you noticed in the middle of that movie, he had a hard time connecting with the Jamie Foxx character of Willie Beeman. And then obviously that one guy who was based off of Jim Rome, he said, fictionally in the movie, he said he began coaching in the 60s. La Russa began coaching, I think, during that same time period as well. And I just think that, La Russa, I didn't like the move when he came back.
Well, I'll say this much, okay? When you're looking at a manager and you can call him Grandpa La Russa, you're in trouble. Grandpa, folks, not dad. Okay, we're talking about Grandpa. So, there's definitely a bit of a generation or two gap between the two. And, I didn't applaud the move either because, I'll never second guess a manager for any kind of strategy, because if I was so good in the first place, I'd be managing a team myself. And I have a rule as a reporter: I don't question a manager's strategy, whether I like it or I don't. But when you have
I'm sorry, bro, but you got to question a 1 and 2 intentional.
Well, that one I might, but 99 out of 100 times, Lou, I won't do it because it's not my job to question strategy. But when it comes to an age differential between today's players versus the way they were done, okay, that's another animal, Lou. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, he's more than double the age of basically 90% of that team.
I mean, is a 1-2 intentional walk considered norm? No, but his justification, and I repeat, justification for the decision, okay, is he went with his gut feeling, okay? Now, let's face it, managers will go with instincts and gut feelings to make moves, and they're not all analytical guys, Lou. They're not. As much as we want to think they are, do I thought it was the right call? It backfired this time. But let me ask you guys all a question. What if it would have worked? What if? Okay, and I know it's
but even if it would have worked when he did it, I would have said what the F.
Okay, but the point
what are you doing?
What he was doing was he was going out there and trusting his instincts. I've talked to managers for the last 40 years.
But that's the problem, Scott. His instincts are terrible now. He's too old.
I'm
all good about trusting your instincts. That's totally fine. Managers should do that more than they even do today. His instincts are just not good instincts.
Right now, his instincts are 77-year-old instincts. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. But and I understand where you're coming from. I'm not saying he made the right decision.
Also, if you wanted to walk him, you didn't have to intentionally do it. If you wanted to pitch around him at 1 and 2 for some reason, throw him 3 balls out of the strike zone. Maybe you get lucky and he swings and misses or swings at a bad pitch and pops it up. Why are you giving him the free base when you had 1 and 2? If you're going to do it before the at bat, not when there's 2 strikes.
I'll give you that. Hey, listen, I'm not afraid to go ahead and, understand both sides of the conversation because I believe that you're right. At least don't look as idiotic doing it with an obvious 1 and 2, because you're literally giving them 3 anyways. At least hopefully that the guy will swing at something, and you never know. But again, this is all hypotheticals anyways. It's, he made a mistake. He's been crucified in the media. And when he started managing, he didn't even have social media anyways. He didn't have a 24-hour news cycle. So not only is he getting criticized by the reporters, he's getting criticized by broadcasters. He's getting criticized by podcasters.
And he should be, and he's not made for it anymore. He's too old. He's
just a grumpy old man at this point.
Yeah.
He's just a grumpy old man at this point.
Rick Curti, you've been incredibly quiet.
Well, hold on. First of all, I agree he should never have come back in the first place. He should have left his Hall of Fame. But the guy's chasing wins right now, and the only thing he's got left is see how many wins I could get in the record book. But yeah, no, I agree.
Look, I love Joe Torre more than any manager in baseball history. If Joe Torre decided to come back to manage, I think it would be a horrible mistake.
I loved Joe Torre I loved everything Joe Torre did, everything for the Yankees and stuff, and for the dynasty there. But the guy left at the right time. When the Dodgers didn't re-sign him back, I thought, he's probably going to have a zillion job offers on his sheet. He didn't come back. He left at the right time, knowing that the game was changing on him and that he wouldn't be able to catch up. I mean, don't get me wrong. He had a lot of success with the Dodgers. Was he able to get them over the hump? No, but he brought them back to he was the starting point for where they are now, because during that time, the Dodgers, man, it was ugly.
Yeah, but Joe Torre wasn't chasing wins like Tony La Russa is. Let's face the reality. Tony La Russa, okay, it was chasing wins and trying to see as many as he can.
Sure. My point is that this has nothing to do with bias. It's about you get to a certain point in your career and it's time to move on. And La Russa had that opportunity. He didn't. But Rick, come on in here.
Okay.
I know you like La Russa for what he has done.
Yeah.
But what about now?
Well, he shouldn't have come back. He's in his 70s, and the game has changed. These players today are so spoiled and so entitled, and social media 24/7, and they want to brand themselves. And honestly, he's an old school disciplinarian, and that doesn't fly anymore. So, but is he a good manager? Yeah, but it's just the game has changed. And he did great last year. I thought he should have gotten manager of the year last year. I mean, I was surprised that they were as good as they were last year, but I think he's lost a team. I think he's going to resign. I don't think he's going to get fired. I think he'll just resign at the end of the season, call it a day. And for managers, I think are going to get fired. It's probably going to be Service and Dave Martinez. I thought when I first heard this question, I thought of Bell from the Reds, but the reason I say that is because the Reds are so stupid right now. They're a stupid organization run by imbeciles. I would not be surprised they fire him because they want to use somebody as a scapegoat. But someone who needs to be fired by the end of the season, and I'm sorry, Dave Roberts needs to go. Okay, the Dodgers are struggling. I've been saying this for the last 2 or 3 years. I want to see Mike Scioscia. I'm a Dodger fan. I know I'm talking to 2 Yankee fans, but we're going to hear some Dodger bias right now. I am a Dodger fan. I want to see Mike Scioscia as a manager. Dave Roberts, to me, I think he's lost the team. They're struggling. He opened this big fat trap saying, I guarantee, like Rex Ryan, I guarantee we're going to win the World Series. And right now it looks bad on him. I think he's lost the team. Bring back Mike Scioscia. He needs to be back with the Dodgers. He is a Dodger, not an Angel. Mike Scioscia to the Dodgers.
You know what? I wouldn't object to that hire. I think it would be a great decision for Scioscia to land with the Dodgers. You know what? Rick?
I think it would be a great decision for any manager to land with that Dodgers team, though. I mean,
it'd be the best job available.
Yeah.
Look at the lineup.
Look at much better.
Look at the lineup. Look at your staff. Look at the farm system. Best job available.
And
I would have said that about Dave Roberts had they not won that 2020 World Series. And I know it doesn't count the same way because it wasn't a full season and all that, but it's hard to fire the guy that keeps getting them back to the playoffs, back to the championship series,
and choke.
I think 3 or 4 World Series, if I'm not mistaken, at least.
And choke.
He should
and
at the very
choke,
least.
and he take people out when they have no hitters like 3 times.
He should at the very least be
Now
put on notice.
when you talk about Tony La Russa intentionally walking someone 1-2, what's stupid is when he takes somebody out during a no hitter or a perfect game whose name is Clayton Kershaw, who's probably the Sandy Koufax of our generation. That's stupid.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, could he be fired if they don't do what they should do this year? Maybe. But I don't think anyone on this show is going to say he's going to be one of the first guys to go in season.
I don't think no, they won't do it in season. There's no way
they'd have to lose like
season.
they have
End
to
of the
lose
season
like
they will.
18 of 20 and fall into third place for us to even start talking about it.
But if you're going to get in season, then I would say the odds right now are Scott Service. Okay, if you're talking about the end of the season, yeah, I'll go along with the fact that Tony Russo.
Well, it's the conversation started with first or next to be fired.
Right.
So we're basically talking in season because once the season ends, it's the first team to decide they don't want their manager moving forward.
I don't see anybody.
It's got to be in season.
I don't see anyone. It's Girardi and Madden, and they're going to ride it out. In the end of the season, we'll see some changes. Martinez, I think, is gone. I think La Russa will resign. Service will probably be fired. And Dodgers, if you have any guts and you want to win and you don't want to be known as the Buffalo Bills of baseball because they've choked in and they won a World Series in the bubble, so people are going to criticize it for that. Get Mike Scioscia back to the Dodgers. That's where he belongs. Not the Angels, the Dodgers. He's a Dodger guy. He's a great manager. He's won a World Series. It's a shame that he's not managing right now. It's an atrocity that he's not managing because he's so great at what he does. Dave Roberts needs to go. He's lost a team. He's made the most stupidest
one guy we
in his
haven't
life.
brought up, and I'm very surprised we haven't. His name is Mike Matheny, and he's managing the last place Royals.
It's funny. Yeah. I thought about Mike Matheny too, Lou, earlier when you sent me that question and wonder about him. He had decent success with St. Louis, and I thought he would do a little bit better job with the Royals. But you know what? That's a name that could very well be one that at the end of the year could come up. So, Lou, I'm glad you brought up Mike Matheny. And, I'll say one thing, Rick. I'm going to say it again. Mike Scioscia belongs with the Dodgers, and that's all I'm going to comment on this.
I want to say one of the Dodgers.
Who has the worst record in Major League Baseball right now? Kansas City Royals.
Right.
Yeah, I think
that shouldn't be the case. They're better than that.
He's been there a while. He's going to go.
We'll see.
So,
right now, the hiring cycle right now, guys, is they're going with younger managers. I mean, obviously, they've kind of stopped a little bit just because of what happened with Jace Tigler in San Diego. But, it'll come back. I mean, I think right now everybody's a little gun shy because of what happened to Jace Tigler in San Diego, where he lost just complete control of that clubhouse.
Well, another one I can think of right now, manager of the Tigers, Trash Can Man.
AJ
what about him?
No.
I mean, they're definitely underachieving, but they've lost so much pitching in injuries.
Yeah. He shouldn't even be back in coaching. That's ridiculous.
It's tough to. Yeah, well, you could say the same thing about Alex Cora, technically, too.
Yeah, that's another bad decision.
Hey, Rick, let me give you some good advice.
Uh-huh.
Quit while you're ahead.
Let it go.
Quit while
I missed your opinion. I got to say my opinion.
Yeah, but you know what? Your opinion, quit while you're ahead with Scioscia. Okay, I'll drink the Scioscia Kool-Aid. I won't drink the Cora Kool-Aid, and I won't drink the Hinch because let's face it, okay, the Tigers have a lot of injuries like a lot of teams, and they're dealing with some AAA guys like Torkelson and guys that aren't performing, haven't made the adaptation to MLB. But quit while you're ahead, Rick.
Yeah, they got to give him another year or two to see what they
That's
can
my
do.
problem with them. They shouldn't be a manager, period. They shouldn't have been hired, period.
Okay, but quit while you're ahead, Rick, with Scioscia. I'm telling you.
AJ,
all right, Scott.
AJ Hinch won't get fired. Just too many injuries. That's not him.
You won't.
Since the beginning, that pitching staff's just been decimated. But Scott, I'll turn it back over to you to finish this off, man.
Well, I got news for you, Lou. You've done an unbelievable job, my friend. I may have gotten a few more opinions than I normally would, but boy, when your topics are this A1, then what do you expect? You definitely succeeded in that category. We all got us going. So proud out to you being my number one quarterback today, Lou Landers. You definitely hit a grand slam home run with all the topics you figured out today. With that said, I want to just let everybody know that, this is 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by Rick Curti, Lou Landers, and Eric Katz. They all know their nicknames, Mr. Opinion, Concrete Dumb, L Square, Senior Landers, whatever you want to call it, with an etc. Okay, I don't know my Mexican very well, but I do know that Lou is in Mexico. Okay, but with that said, at least at the moment. But folks, you can subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel on YouTube. Okay, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find out everything you need to know about us, or follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. If you want to hear also, like, call 954-304-4941 if you're interested in advertising with us, sponsoring, whatever. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. A special shout out to Candy Ebling, does a remarkable job to make sure that everything gets posted, both the content wise as well as everything else. So, Lou, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I've said my piece, and you can go ahead and finish it off. You're closing this one out.
All right. Well, Rick, say your piece. Let everyone know where they can find you, and let's hear it, man.
Okay, well, you can find me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there. Please sign to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, Charlotte Bats Baseball, Instagram at Charlotte Bats, and I'm on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball, and also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti. And if you have any comments or questions or want to reach out to me, my email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
Eric?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can find me on BellyUpSports.com, where I cover Wisconsin Badgers football.
All right, short and sweet, my brother, short and sweet. And you can find me at Landers Talks on Twitter, drroto.com, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports, and Sirius XM and Sports Byline. Tons of podcasts. Find me on Twitter and on Facebook. And I guess from the law firm of Morgan, Roth, Curti, and Katz, I'm Lou Landers, and we'll catch you next week.
You bet. And one last thing I should mention, Rick Curti does a great job with social media. Eric Katz, well, Fire Up Wisconsin. Thank you very much, Lou. Great. Glad to have everybody back tonight. Catch you later, folks. Bye-bye.